One of the favorite things about hearing your song on the radio is you always roll the window down and you sing it really loud. Or when you're pulling up at home, you're on your way home from work and you pull up in the driveway and one of your songs comes on the radio, you never get out of the car. You sit in the car, you roll down the windows, you sing as loud as you can, hoping the neighbors will see or hear, or someone in the house, you know, of your family will come out and just celebrate with you. And it doesn't matter how long it's been on the radio or how many times you've heard it. There's just nothing like that feeling. It feels like every time is the first time. I'm Liz Rose, and I'm a songwriter here in Nashville. And I believe that the relationship between BMI and country radio is more important than it's ever been. Every time a song is played, a songwriter pays a bill, whether it's the electric bill or the gas bill or puts braces on their kids' teeth. It's very important. And I really appreciate everything that country radio has done for songwriters. So thank you, country radio and BMI, for being such good stewards of our songs and allowing us to make a living and continue to do what we love to do.
Yeah, our friends at BMI. Jody Williams, Bradley Collins. Good morning, everybody. I am thrilled to see you for a couple of reasons. And the primary reason I'm thrilled to see you is what you're going to experience this morning. I'm going to tell you is going to be transformational for you personally if you choose to use what you're going to have shared with you. Have a couple of announcements to make, or I'll get in big trouble if I don't, housekeeping-wise. Make plans today, of course. We thank Mike Dungan and Royce Rizzer for every year putting on the Team UMG lunch at the Ryman at 11:30. Take off, go over there, and you're going to see one great show. We, of course, are very proud to have Bob Kingsley's Countdown Top 40 as a sponsor. And Bob and I got together, I think this is our 8th year, about 8 years ago, and said, hey, let's get a bunch of songwriters together and do a la Bluebird at CRS, and we called it, I came up with the name Acoustic Alley, and it has been sold out since the first night we did it. It's packed, and get over there tonight. It starts at 7, and you will have an amazing experience with incredible songwriters. And then another thing right prior to that is a partnership that we've developed with our friends at the Country Music Hall of Fame. And they have been so gracious. It's going to run from 5 to 7 tonight. And there'll be a cocktail reception, some great food. It's all free to CRS attendees in the rotunda of the Country Music Hall of Fame, so you'll be able to see all the plaques. A great performance by a great songwriter and artist that you will see this evening. And you also will have access to free tours from 5 to 7. So it's a really cool thing to do, and please join us for that. Our guest this morning is I'm happy to say, a friend of mine at this point. I met Miles Adcox about a year ago. And I met him, he's been here for quite a while. I've heard about him from numerous friends in the industry. And at Milestones, they have a course on trauma. And I had a little sister who had a terminal disease, and I knew I was going to lose her. And as it started getting closer to the end, I thought I better go get some tools to prepare myself. and since she's the last of my family on that side. And so I went and took this course, and it was awesome, and it was great. But when I was out there, they also had another program that I got turned on to, and it really is about intentional thinking and taking back control of our lives. And that's what I've asked Miles to speak about today. I'll tell you that I have discovered that I was living my life on autopilot. And I think a lot of you live your lives on autopilot because we have so many demands today that it's very easy to wake up, first thing you do is look at that cell phone, go, oh crap, I've got 87 fires to put out. You fall out of bed half asleep on a treadmill that's already running 200 miles an hour, manage to get a shower, get your clothes on, and jump in the car and get down to work with a fire extinguisher and start dealing with stuff. And so your whole day is in kind of this manic, chaotic style of management or doing what you do. And in learning about taking back control of your life, which Miles is going to talk to you about, for me, has been transformative in that now every morning when I wake up, I intentionally do not look at this. I get up, I go to the bathroom, brush my teeth, take care of all that I need to take care of. I come back, I get back into bed for 3 to 5 minutes. I don't play Mahavishnu Orchestra meditation tapes or the Maharishi, but I do close my eyes and just kind of practice a little slow breathing, meditative breathing for 3 to 5 minutes. Then I pick up the phone and I look at it. I see all the fires and I go, okay. Get up, take a shower, get dressed, go to work. The whole day is so chill, yet I have a better understanding of what needs to be done, what needs to be dealt with, and you can execute it so much quicker. And that's what I learned from the man that I want to speak to you right now and for you to meet, because he's one amazing dude. Would you please welcome to CRS 2018, Mr. Miles Adcox.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Good morning, everyone. How are we doing? Hard for me to see how many people are out here, but I'm just shocked anybody's here. The creative community usually in Nashville doesn't get up until 10, but I know this is a lot of radio crowd, so if you work the morning radio, you're up pretty early. But thank you for making time to come. It's an honor to be here to speak at CRS, and I want to start with a story. And I actually wrote it down just because I'm a new dad, and if there are new dads out there, you know how exhausted I am. I want to tell you quickly about a young professional who jumped into the job world a little over 15 years ago. They were not that far out of college and on fire about getting to work. They shot out of the gate like a rocket. Started working at a nonprofit and then got an entry-level job for a small for-profit center. And within 3 years, they worked almost every position in the organization and got asked to take the job as CEO. They quickly started to improve the culture of the organization and then doubled the size of the service they were offering. And over the next couple of years, would build a new team, instill a new business model, shift the specialty, carve out a niche that would help grow the revenue by over 300%. They then partnered and bought another company and ran both. And then began starting similar businesses around the country with this new model. They did a year's worth of due diligence on the first business, helped negotiate and execute an exit strategy, sell the company to a bigger organization who continued on that growth trajectory and had even more success. They helped more than quadruple the owner's initial investments and left behind a sustainable model and team that succeeded them successfully with no decline or even dip in revenue and almost no turnover. It's not bad. 3 years in. So what do you think happened to this professional? Okay, it's one theory, burned out. What else? Well, let me tell you about another one really quickly. And this is a story of another young professional or young leader who came along about the same time. They had a similar direction with similar success, and somewhere in the middle, they began to feel overwhelmed. They were working 16 to 18-hour days and sleeping on the couch at the office. They lost a significant relationship due to being unavailable and then being on the run, and ran through several relationships without being able to hold on to much. They were addicted to technology, and being present was typically only possible when they needed to be on in a work environment. They started avoiding confrontation, started making mistakes on managing finances personally and with the business, to the point of even ignoring opening mail. Lost contact with their family, started partying way too hard, picked up a significant caffeine habit, stopped exercising, put on 25 pounds, developed a sleep disorder, and began to deal with bouts of depression. What do you think happened to that professional? That one definitely burnt out, you said? What was that? Say that? Are they still alive? Good news to report, they are still alive. What if I told you the interesting thing about those two professionals is they're the same person at the same period of time? The reason I know that, and I know that well, is because that professional was me. And if you wouldn't have known the second part of that story, I don't think you would have ever known it if I wouldn't share it right now, because I had a smile on my face, and as you heard in that first paragraph, I was quite successful. Yet underneath the surface, I was drowning. Can anybody relate to that? My insides did not quite match my outsides. Good news for me is I had somewhat of an existential crisis at that point. It wasn't public, it was very private, as most crises are, because I've been working around this industry for about that length of time, about 15 years. I've been around the music and entertainment space. And a lot of people, I know there's a lot of familiar faces in this room, but there's a lot of people that have known me for years and still couldn't tell you what I do. Because I'm kind of stealth. I kind of am behind the scenes, and usually if you see me coming, people kind of get worried because I know that I'm that guy in the helping profession that helps people deal with the stuff that you just heard me share about. But not so much anymore. What's interesting, in the last 2 to 3 years, we've turned a corner. And I'm no longer the outsider that people are somewhat scared of. I'm an insider that people in this space see as an ancillary service to a community that deals with significant adverse life circumstances and a heck of a lot of stress. And you may think I'm referring to the artist, and I am. But guess who else I'm referring to? Every single one of us sitting in this room. I've gotten to know the entertainment space from the inside out. And it's incredibly fast-paced, and I don't need to tell you that. You heard Bill just share about it. And I think I used to go around and talk about to labels and to artists and to management companies and to agencies and say, if you don't do something about this, you better get ready for this, meaning a fall, because it's pretty predictable. How many people have seen really successful people in our space crash or face plant? It's not usually if, it's when at some point. But recently, I don't know if it's because we're trending, if it's gotten cooler to get help, or counseling and coaching is not as scary as it used to be, evidenced by more people show up to these talks than ever before. I'm glad Bill helped me name that talk, because I would have had something emotional in there and nobody would have come. But you all showed up. And here's what I've learned is I'm an entrepreneur and a business owner, and I happen to manage an emotional wellness retreat space. And I'm around some of the greatest change agents in the world. I get to employ a lot of them, and they fly in from all over the world, and we curate this amazing experience. And so I've learned a great deal. But I'm not a big fan of counseling and therapy. And yet that's my livelihood, and it's saved my tail several times. Why is that? Because I think it's horribly misbranded. I think for a long time we've positioned the helping resource. This is what happens or where you go when something's wrong with you. And here's what I've learned. We got it just the opposite. It's not what's wrong with you that you would take a deep dive and become a better version of who you are. It's what's right with you. And that's what I'm seeing starting to shift. And what's interesting is there are other industries that are slow to react, but tech is all over it. I mean, if you look at Facebook and Google and all their budgets for emotional wellness in their yearly training, and guess what? Entertainment, and especially music, is not far behind. But I will say we're on the front end of this kind of movement, of which is Now it's not really about how do you take care of yourself so you'll burn out. It's how do I take care of myself so that I succeed, that I become a better version of myself as a leader and as a professional. And guess what? It trickles into life too. And here's one of the reasons why it's important. Is because you guys are in a unique space. This is much better backlit. Now I can see everybody. I'm going to just stay with this slide the whole time. I read body language for a living too, and it's often hard when all I see is lights, but now I see people. Is music brings people together. It allows us to experience the same emotions. I'm going to talk a lot about emotions today because of what I hope I do, if anything. Because the key to intentional living to me has been to raise my EQ. Show of hands if people know what EQ is. Most of you know of it, have heard of it. It's kind of the cousin of IQ. I won't get into the science behind it other than here's the good news. We can change your emotional smarts. You can leave here in an hour and be smarter emotionally than when you came in. I can't do that for your IQ. Because your IQ, you got it. It was what you were born with. Some of it you probably left on Broadway last night at 1:30 in the morning. But what you came in here with, you got, we're going to help you raise your EQ a little bit. So you're going to hear me talk about emotions, but people everywhere are the same in heart and spirit, no matter what language we speak, what color we are, the form of our politics, or the expression of our love and our faith. Music proves we are the same. Now, this is not going to be a big rallying cry about unity, although I think we could use it, because ultimately we, as an industry that is highly competitive, I think we need to move from competition to connection. Because one of the things we're seeing out there in the world is that if we don't shoulder up and do this thing together, that's pretty predictable too, what's going to happen. But I just want to say that you, meaning those of us in the entertainment and music industry, and yes, I consider myself in it, even though I work as a helping professional, are uniquely poised and positioned to embrace what is cutting edge now, which is emotional wellness and taking care of ourselves in the workplace. So I don't want to come up here and scare you to say, if you don't, here's what's going to happen. But I already know that, because I know the statistics, and I know 1 in 3 of you right now are dealing with a significant life circumstance. It's pretty painful, traumatic past. And guess what? There's no way we don't drag that into our work life. We 100% do. And that's not a problem. The fact that we drag stress into our work life, that we drag our home life into our work life, and that we take our work life home, that's not really the problem. It's when we don't know about it. Because when you know about it, and when you have a place to offload and process and talk about it, it changes the game. It's unbelievable how integrated I feel when I am emotionally fit, when I know what's happening. Does it mean that I've got my stuff together? No, not necessarily. Because on some days, I can tell you, I feel like I've got a pretty high EQ. And I feel like I operate on a pretty high plane. And some days I am a hot mess still. Because work doesn't stop, life doesn't stop, family doesn't stop. I had a situation this morning there's no way I'll get through today without telling you about, because it was challenging. And the emotion of it sitting right here. It happened at 4:30 this morning. But not yet. We'll fall apart this early in the talk. How many people have ever heard of Dr. Brene Brown? Okay. I would highly suggest her work. I think probably reading a couple of her books is going to do times 10 what I can do in 50 minutes up here right now. But she's right now speaking about leadership in some of the top organizations in the world. She did a TED Talk in 2010 that's one of the top 3 ever to be heard. And she talks about vulnerability and shame and some other things. But I love her definition of connection. You're going to hear me talk about connection a lot in the next 30 minutes, which is, I define connection as the energy that exists between people when they feel seen, heard, and valued. And when they can give and receive without judgment, and when they derive substance and strength from the relationship. The reason that's important is because this is the way most of us operate on a daily basis. I can tell by your laugh you can relate. Some of you are old enough to remember Naked Gun in that movie, which is kind of fun too. But everybody knows that space. It can be at work or it can be at home, but literally a building can be on fire. People can be jumping out of it. Like, I love this guy jumping off the building back here. And what you see is the first paragraph of my story back at that time. There was a fire burning in me, but what you saw is I was successful in taking on the world. Nothing to see here. Everything's okay. Does everybody know that? Head nods. What can we do about it? I've been working on a curriculum for a while with at on-site and with a place called Wellspire that you're going to be hearing about soon, where we're going to be unpacking this in a couple of days, which is basically taking people through a boot camp when it comes to being emotionally fit. Now, you might think that that's therapy, and it's not at all. It's actually, we're just teaching you what we've learned based on change and the research in the change base. But I define emotional fitness as power, understanding, strength, and empathy around your mood and feelings toward yourself and others. Quite simply, you could say being more self-aware. Self-awareness is our superpower, both professionally and personally. It's been proven over and over again. However, we don't pay attention to it or give it the same, well, depending on who you are. A lot of us don't give that on the physical side too, but there's certainly more importance placed on physical fitness than there is on emotional fitness and getting emotionally well. Before I show you this, I actually want to set it up. Not too long ago, I had the opportunity, and I've worked with a lot of artists and a lot of people in your profession, in your business, but not too long ago, I had some artists reach out that said, we'd like to get together, and nobody was necessary, the wheels weren't falling off for anybody, but I think they'd seen the wheels fall off of enough artists that they could predict what was coming if they didn't do something about it. And they basically said, hey, I'd like to get some buddies together, and I just want to sit around and talk and just see if we can prevent what we know is usually inevitable, which is loss of family, divorce, usually chemical dependency, exhaustion, burnout at some point in an artist's career, especially the ones that come from here and shoot out of the rocket like that. So I agreed to sit down with these folks, me and another friend, and there was 6 of us that started. I think we're up to 8 or 9 now. And I've learned as much as I've ever been able to share, but one of the first things I figured out when you're sitting here looking at 8 really successful artists in the country music space, and with a range of different situations going on in their personal life, but the first thing that they ask is, you've got about half bought in and the other half asking some of the questions that you're asking, like, I don't know if I buy into this, nor can I trust it. So the other half are saying, why am I here, basically? Because again, why would you be in front of me? Why would you talk about emotional fitness unless you what? Needed to. So unless my ass is on fire or the wheels are falling off, what's the point? That's usually when we take a look at this stuff. And so I thought about it, and I thought I can either, and here's what we know about prevention in this work to begin with, is I can't scare you into being interested in this. And honestly, neither can life circumstances. Because if any of you have ever dealt with addiction or mental health issues, or you had a family member, or if you've walked a colleague through it, you've seen all the best rationale in the world doesn't make sense to an irrational circumstance. You've seen people make crazy decisions despite unreal circumstances. So I knew I can't sit here and tell these artists that this is important. And if you don't embrace it and start doing things and live intentional and do this stuff, then you're never. I've done that enough to see the eyes roll back in their head and they're gone. They don't care. So I thought I need to figure out what is their kryptonite. What is it that an artist, what is it that brought them to the dance, and what is it that keeps them at the dance? And it was creativity. Creativity is what brings most artists into their superpower and gets them success. And so I said, that's what's at threat. It's not losing their life, losing all this stuff. So I wrote this called The Artist's Dilemma. And basically it goes like this. I won't spend a lot of time on it. I just want to move through it pretty quickly. But it says public, and this is what I see is kind of a dilemma for most artists. Public professions create abnormal life circumstances. Everybody got that? Public professions are just strange. They're weird. They create abnormal life circumstances. Abnormal life circumstances create high levels of stress. Unaddressed stress creates loneliness, anxiety, depression, addictions, strained relationships, etc., all of which kill creativity. So creativity is what got you here, and you signed up for a career that in some ways is designed to kill it. That got their attention. Because the only thing that scares them is not losing their life, it's losing their gift. And guess what? We've since riffed off that and created one of the healthiest artist groups I've ever been around in over a year. And it's been a year. And it's been unbelievable because people are diving in and we're checking in all the time and we're doing some amazing things that I hope one day we'll be able to report back on and say, look what we did to prevent this. And it's not necessarily preventing it, it's just so we can enjoy it. How many people have ever seen as these artists go out on radio tour and they come see you guys and they're hollow? They're own, but they're hollow. And now here's the interesting thing for us. And I know I'm talking fast and moving fast. which is normally not my style. I'm pretty slow. But I really want to get this stuff in. Take out artist and put in you. Because guess what? Your profession is abnormal too. As a matter of fact, I've seen everybody in the entertainment space that works around the art, that works around music, works unusual and odd hours. It's highly stressful. There's a high rate of burnout. So plug yourself in. Music professionals, radio professionals, whoever's in here, create abnormal life circumstances. Abnormal life circumstances are high levels of stress. Unaddressed stress creates all of which kill what? Relationships. Plug that in. Plug whatever it's taken from you or whatever it has the potential to take. But guys, this without knowing this, and here's the good thing. This is not bad either. It's only bad if we don't know it. But when we know it and we start to unpack it, it changes the game. Go ahead. Actually, let me set this up, and then we'll hit play. I want to introduce you to an Olympic athlete. Some of you may know it, Derek Redmond. How many people have heard of Derek Redmond? Show of hands. 2. Wow. All right, so Derek is one of the most decorated, this was the third, got voted the third best moment in Olympic history. And nobody's heard of him because he didn't win a gold medal, but we're going to watch and see what happened here. But Derek got injured. He was a decorated runner out of Europe, and he was slighted to win. He set records in the world competitions, and he was slighted to win. I think it was in 1998. And just before the Olympics, he went down with a career-ending injury. Doctors said he would never compete again. And then in 1992, which is the clip I'm getting ready to show you, somehow after going through a lot of surgeries, he not only qualified but was favored to win again. Go ahead and hit play if you could.
When troubles come and my heart burdened be, then I am still and wait here in the silence until you come and sit a while with me. You raise me up so I can stand on mountains. You raise me up to walk on stormy seas. I am strong when I am on your shoulders.
I'm curious, what did you notice? I'd love to hear from some of you. And I've got this. Would somebody help me pass this around? Thank you. Doesn't have to be a long, just could be one word. Hey, it brought up this, or I noticed this. What did you notice after watching that clip or by watching that clip? You don't have to have the mic if you just want to yell it out. Determination. His father wouldn't let him cover his face. Say more about that. I know we're taping this. Can I come down, or is that going to mess up the shot? Anybody know that? I'm just going to go for it. You guys tell me if I need to jump back up, and I'm coming down here so I can see everybody. So, it's accepted help. What else? Finished on his own. I like that. You don't need to come in first to be a champion. What do you relate to in that as it relates to your own life, your work life, home life? What about that clip? Did it bring anything up? What'd you? Yeah, wish I had a father like that. Yeah, so if you're human and breathing, that clip's usually going to bring up dad issues always. Seriously, because it's tough. I mean,
that's the race that I'm. So that's my
Really good. Yeah, if he hadn't torn his hamstring, we would never have seen that clip.
I think no matter how much.
Who did you relate to more in the clip? And we're going to go with work at this point. Actually, you can do your personal life too if you want. Who did you relate to more in that clip as it relates to you as a leader or you in life? Was it Derek Redmond or his father? Okay. Anybody feel like Derek? Couple, good. All right, so I want to show you quickly something we've learned about the change process that's relevant to this clip. And I think it's relevant to you because I think for a long time we've been looking at change the wrong way. We were taught, traditional school of thought, whether you're in business school or in psychology, it doesn't matter, that change happens with a carrot or a stick. So we need, in order to intervene on stuck or adverse behavior, stuck behavior, or any pathology, which I define as resistant to change stuck behavior, that it needs to happen with somebody either pushing you or pulling you where they think you need to go or where we think we need to go. And if it's not somebody else, who else would be the person pushing and pulling our process? Ourselves, typically. Actually, I'm going to just show you up here. I can tell you who I relate to in that clip. Today it's Derek's father, but a lot of days it just varies. But for a long time in the helping profession, my standard was a one-percenter. And Derek Redmond is a one-percenter. There's nothing wrong with Derek. He's a freak of nature. I mean, that guy's unbelievable because he went 4 years later after that injury and ended up being on the Olympic basketball team. And now he goes around and speaks to kids about overcoming adversity. I mean, he's just unbelievable. But that's the way I viewed, once I got into my career and found my passion, that's the way I viewed my professional track. It was like, nothing will ever stop me, and no matter how many times I face adversity or fall, I'll continue to get back up at all costs. Anybody work like that? And here's what I've learned about it. It is sustainable for 1%, but not the rest of us. And people don't change like that. And let me show you what happens. So would somebody be willing to come up real quick? Let me show you something. Yeah, come on up, thanks. There are these stages of change that have been scientifically. How are you, Miles?
Jared, nice to meet you.
Jared,
Yes,
good to meet you. hang tight, and we're going to do something. There are these things called stages of change, which is basically scientifically proven stages that every human being goes through when you're dealing with any kind of change process. And I'm going to kind of try to visually show you with Jared here. So Jared, let's say you are showing up with a problem or a question and I have the answer. And so here's where we know you show up. So 90% of us, when we're showing up and we're stuck or in a problem, we're in pre-contemplation. You can make up what pre-contemplation means. It means, I know I need to change something, but I've got questions about what that looked like, and I'm not so sure I trust it. Everybody know that stage? Not so sure I trust it, or definitely don't trust. Any of us, if we have a spouse, a colleague, a kid come to us in pre-contemplation, what stage do you think we're in? Action. Because the fastest way that I can get you out of this discomfort of not knowing where you need to be is to tell you what you need to do. So our go-to is advice. And advice doesn't change anything. I'll go ahead and give that away. But here's where we are. You're in pre-contemplation. I'm in action because I know what you need to do. I mean, the solution's right here. You just got to come get it. Look at it. It's amazing. It's amazing. Just whenever you're ready, just come on over. All right. So tell me, what happened there? You came over and you took a step back right when you got close. Yep. Tell me about the step back.
I really want to take your advice. I don't know. You know what I mean? It's like,
where is that mic? So we can hear you. Oh, we got another one here. Perfect. Say that again. Say it again if you don't mind.
well, so you take the steps to it, and then you get right to that point, and you're like, oh, do I really want this? Take a step back.
So our body typically is ahead of our mind in knowing what we need. And so always read and pay attention to your body. Your body tells your truth. And so that's what happened for you at that time. Your mind was like, I'm going to go knock this out so I can get off the stage and get this over with. But you got here and your body was like, whoop, put on the brakes. So, all right, so that didn't work. So head on back to pre-contemplation. But, yeah. But once again, I do need to tell you, I mean, this is unbelievable, this solution. And really, it's quite simple. You just got to put the effort in. You got to get. I don't even know how to introduce myself. Let me say, I'm Smiles again.
Hey.
What was that like?
For me, it's, okay, yeah, I'm ready. Let's do it. You know what I mean?
So you like that?
I do.
You like being?
I don't like being pulled, but I mean, it's, you know what I mean? Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, you know, they did the first step, I stepped back, and now it's just like, yeah, okay, we're doing this. You know, we're going to move forward.
So the first step, and then the second, is something we would call compliance in the change process, which is the number one form of resistance. Did y'all know that, relationship-wise? Compliance is the number one form of resistance. The fastest way I can get you to shut up is to do what I think you want me to do. You ever do that? Have you ever seen a counselor, a therapist, or a teacher? It's like, I'm going to make them feel really smart just so they stop asking me questions. Or an artist. All right, so what we know is that compliance will bring you to the dance, but it won't keep you there. So this does not create sustainable change. Because why? Because you came over, it was my idea. So you're here for a minute, but we know you're going to end up back over there. You're going to relapse it, so head on back. But once again, I do need to show you. I don't know if you got a real clear view. I'll get out of the way. You just kind of focus on it. You get. So what was that like?
You know, it's a push. I mean, you know what I mean? It's still, you still have the hesitation of, I mean, obviously I stopped a few feet short of where I needed to be.
Yeah, that time you had a little more resistance. The first time I pulled you over, you just went, and then that time
Right.
your body was like, you know,
Right.
I could feel the resistance. And then you stopped short of it, so come on back. And do you notice that when you got pushed and pulled, even though the word said, I don't like this, or I don't much like to get pushed or pulled, your face told me something different because you were smiling. Anybody relate to that? You know what I'm talking about? So, all right, so we know none of those create sustainable change. So let's try one more time. So here's, how you doing?
Good, how you doing?
Pretty good. And let me, Tell me about this, that problem there. What feels stuck? Yeah. What's this like? It doesn't have to be real for you. Just
Awkward.
yeah. Man, that is perfect. You know how I know awkward so well? Because I've been here a bunch. I know exactly what it feels like and what you're talking about. All right, Paul, so how does this feel?
Feels like we need to do something.
Yeah. Here's what we know is when we join someone in pre-contemplation, if we're in leadership, we're in life, we're parents, then it's twice as likely that we'll take a step together. That's what we've learned about change. Is historically the way we always thought we needed to do it is I need to manipulate you to get where I think you need to be. Here's how I know we need to do it now and what creates sustainable change. Did you know? Thank you. Good job, man. You're right. It was awkward. I was feeling it too. It's not our job to push and pull people where we think they need to go. It's our job to join them. And when we join somebody shoulder to shoulder, it requires us going back into our own pre-contemplation and our own stuck and our own uncertainty and taking a look at it. And you may think that's a simple task, but it's not. It's easy. It requires us to be intentional about working on who we are, reconciling pain, rewriting the parts of our narrative that aren't working for us so that we can move forward as an improved and better human being. It changes the game, and for years, it's been seen as don't do it unless it's wrong with you, or this is scary. Two things. It is scary, and it's 100% worth it. I did it because I actually needed it at some point, and chances are you have too. But even if you don't, did you see what I did with the artists when I went and met them? I didn't come to them and say, guys, if you don't get your shit straight, you're going to have a face plant like, and I can give you 9 artists. I can show you the ones that committed suicide last year. You ever seen? I can show you all that. That doesn't motivate anybody. But if I come back here and join them and say, man, I know what it's like to be stuck, and I know creativity is important to you, I got twice the chance of engaging them. You know why? Because it's no longer my idea or my agenda. We just invited it and made it. Is it Jared? Just made it Jared's. We joined in that deal together. That's how change works, is we have to empathize and have grace on our own process and our own story if we're ever going to give permission for anybody to move forward. And that's the hardest walk we take individually is not when we're walking back to join somebody else's pain, it's when we're walking back to reconcile our own. And as a change professional, as a coach in this space, as a consultant, unless I've done enough of my own work, I have no business taking you somewhere where I'm not willing to go myself. So guess what that makes me? I get to get a PhD in myself, and so do you. And somebody told me a long time ago when I got into this field, they said the best change agents, the one that stick around the longest and make the longest lasting impacts are those, not those who have 9 master's degrees. That's important too. It's those who get a PhD in themselves. It's those who have the willingness to be intentional about reconciling their story and reconciling their pain. There's 100 ways to do that. So you heard me say in the beginning, I'm not a big fan of traditional counseling and therapy, but you better believe I'm a fan of counseling and therapy done the right way. Because it doesn't need to be about what's wrong with you. It's 100% about what's right with you. Because there are these things called mirror neurons. And basically, the way mirror neurons work is you can catch emotion like a cold. Have you ever experienced that when you're in a movie, or let's say you're at a little darker, but at a funeral, and somebody starts to grieve or emote? What do you typically do? You do exactly what they do. Let me actually show you this clip real quick. Actually, I'm going to come back to that. Go ahead and hit play on this one. This is a social experiment I want you guys to see.
I see what you did. I like your...
Oh, thank you.
It's like infinity. I feel nervous. Do you feel nervous? I don't know what we're doing. He's so white.
I should have peed first.
Timer's down front right there. That's what I'm going off of.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
What, you mean staring at each other's, looking into each other's eyes? Doesn't seem natural.
4 minutes is a long time. No other instructions on it?
No, I have to look in your eyes.
Yeah, that's it.
That's it.
que ruede my eye.
I can blink, right? That's just a
I'm going to hypnotize you.
I could keep going. How did you feel?
Weird. In 55 years of marriage, we've never really looked into each other's eyes like that. But I do look at your eyes sometimes because I'm checking your blood sugar.
You check on me all the time.
Yeah.
I wondered what you were thinking.
How wonderful it was to just sit here and look at my wife for a change without discussing work, business, and situations.
When I look at you really closely, I realize how much I need you and what you mean to me, and because that's the truth. And I couldn't imagine being with anybody else.
It's pretty interesting to be able to sit in front of someone that you don't know
Just
and
met me
just
like, what,
look
10 minutes
at
ago?
yeah, and just
feel like you can't not see each other
yeah,
again
it's like
after-
we kind of walk away and let's go
like,
have a drink.
"Oh, that's nice to meet you."
I feel like we can get right to the dance floor after something like this.
What'd you notice on that one? You pick up the part I talked about with mirror neurons. You see how, I mean, you guys are going to be professional body language readers by the time you get out of here. But here's what I want to leave you with, and we're going to wrap here in about just a few minutes, is that if you walk away being intentional about anything, what I'd love is that you walk out of here and you live, love, you lead, you parent better. But if you walk away with anything, it's become more connected to who you are and who you're becoming. And there is an intentional way to do that. There's a lot of complicated ways and there are simple ways, but I think for a long time we've overcomplicated the message so nobody does it. We all have our own way of doing that. Some of you lean on your faith, some of you might do counseling, some of you just might check in with a friend. It all counts, and it's all important. You can see what happens when we stop and connect. And I can tell you, having worked with 50,000 people over the last 15 years that haven't made time for that, I also know what it looks like not to take time to connect. And it's quite simple, and it's quite important. This morning, because here's why, is the brain moves towards optimum performance. The brain moves unconsciously towards optimum performance. This was the slide I was going to show you earlier, which is when Michael Phelps won all those gold medals in this was the first Olympics where he smashed all kinds of world records. The story that got told that day, you see the world record line? The story that got told that day was that Phelps smashed the world record for the first time. No other swimmer has ever swum that fast. The story that didn't get told that day was that 6 other swimmers broke the world record that day too. The brain moves towards optimum performance. So you want to create healthy connection in your life, be around healthy community that values connection. And let me tell you, this industry does, because I was quickly on the front lines. I wasn't there, but right after what happened in Las Vegas, we hosted something at BMI and had crews together. And I've never seen an industry, and I've worked with several mass tragedies, but not one that got the response from this industry top to bottom. Our people have the potential to lean in and do this well, and not every industry has that fortune. This morning at 4:45 a.m., my grandparents were so kind. My little boy's teething. He's 6 months old. And so he went from being a great sleeper to not sleeping at all. And we're new parents, and so mom and dad offered to come over, and we pumped milk, and they were staying the whole night. We were going to get a night of sleep. I was excited because I had this coming up. I wanted to be rested. And I get a knock. You never want to get on the door, which was a really frantic and terrified mom, my mom, grandmother. And she said, "We've had an accident. Your dad was rocking baby at 5. He walked down the steps, missed the last steps, and fell." And says, "Baby, okay?" We don't know. And so I spent the first 2 hours this morning on the phone with the ER and doctors trying to figure out, is he going to be okay? And I couldn't help but my head go to the worst. Like, what's life going to be like for him now that he's got this potential head injury? Terrified. And I wish I had time to get into psychology, what was happening in my brain. But those of you that have experienced trauma, and we all have because we're all human, you know, your brain typically flights or freezes in that moment. Well, mine froze. It froze in panic because it needed to. I couldn't feel what was overwhelming because I had to jump into solution. Well, good news for now. After we talked to the last doctor, he said, go ahead and try to feed him and see if that helps, because he was very flat affect. He was doing some stuff that seemed weird to us, and we were scared, so we couldn't really get an objective view. But we fed him. He started to wake up. He started to smile. And we don't even know. I think he's okay. He's going to the doctor right now. But the important part of that story, I grew up not being able to do emotion well. And I've had to train myself and be intentional about being connected and doing emotion. So typically in moments like that, I'm the guy you want because I can handle crisis. I'm a firefighter that can go into a building and not have emotion. But the minute that moment stopped and we hung up the phone from the doctor and we figured the baby's going to be okay, what do you think my wife needed? She needed emotion. And it took everything in me because I was in solution and I wanted to bounce out the door and get over here and get ready and be tactical. And I had to stop what I was doing. I had to take some deep breaths, and I had to walk in there and hug my wife and let her cry because she was terrified. And I did that, and I'm proud that I was able to do that. I was able to do that because I make it an intentional aspect of my life. I slow down and I connect. I connect with you so I can connect with me better so that I can lead, love, live, and parent better. And it makes my job and my life a whole heck of a lot of fun. And I can tell you from being an entrepreneur that's grown a business, it's improved my bottom line times 10. The smarter I've got, the better I lead and the better I work. You better believe it's worth it. I'm going to ask you guys to do one thing on closing here. One thing I want you to do if you walk away. There are a lot of suggestions about reading and taking time out and meditating and all that goes with it. And yes, anything that supports you being more connected and taking a breather, I'm 100% in favor of it. But the one thing I can tell you that's absolutely changed the game for me is saying the unsaid. I typically talk through a filter. I would never stop and look at Rick Dime. We've known each other for years and been to a million events. I'd never stop and say, man, I really appreciate you. And I really do. You know why? Because I know you're a big deal photographer, and you've been kind to me when nobody knew me until today. And I want to tell you that. You know why? Because I don't stop and do that enough. It's easy for me to pass a guy like that we've been acquaintances and seen each other. And we got to stop and do it. If there's anything you do here at this conference, it's tell a colleague that doesn't know that you're thinking something about them, share it with them. Because that doesn't help you, it helps them. Did you notice my voice just in looking at you? We don't know each other. I just was like, man, we had a moment, really. We might need to get coffee after this. No, I'm kidding. But those moments are so important. Grab your smartphones. Last thing we're going to do here. Here's what I want you to do, and we're going to close on this. But I want you to say the unsaid to somebody. We're going to practice this together. I want you to say the unsaid in about 140 characters. Don't write a paragraph or a book. Who is somebody that needs to hear from you today? This could be a kid. It could be low-hanging fruits. It could be somebody's spouse that you tell them you love them every day, and it's fine to drop another one. Or it could be somebody that you don't talk to a lot, that you haven't talked to in a while. It could be somebody like what I just did. Whoever it is, this could be a sibling you hadn't talked to in years. That's a bigger risk. Or it could be a wife, or it could be your teenager. I want you to text them right now. We're going to do this together. Something short and sweet, 2 sentences, 3 sentences. Could be I love you or just thinking about you. So we're going to do it in about 30 seconds or so. We'll be quick, so go ahead and then as you're doing that, the idea is we're going to send it and no expectations. We're going to turn the phone over, not wait for a response. That's the hard part. Because if you got teenagers, they're going to be like, everything okay, Mom? And the reason I say no expectations is it is important, because if you're reaching out to somebody you hadn't talked to in a long time, chances are you might not hear back. And that's an emotional risk that could have an unfortunate byproduct. But the truth is, I'm not doing this for them, I'm doing this for you. Because the science of gratitude and affirmation tells me that by doing this, if you just did it, if you go ahead and finish it up if you would, but we just lowered your ambient stress level. And by lowering your ambient stress level, you have the ability to connect better. And if you walk away from CRS this year being more intentional about the way you connect to who you are, you've made the longest journey we ever take in mankind, which is the 18 inches from here to here. And it will make you a better professional. It will make you more successful. And you'll be a hell of a lot more fun to be around. Thank you, guys. Have a good rest of your day.